talk about this Georgia-Florida situation. So this rose up again on Twitter the other day, as it tends to do in April, May, June, the X season, so to speak. This entire premise that some people are rubbed the wrong way by the location of the Georgia-Florida game. It's a legitimate debate, and some are and some aren't. Like, there are some debates that are propped up as such, and they aren't really debates at all. Like when LSU was going through the rest of college football like a buzzsaw in 2019, I remember seeing an article, and it was, of course, this version of LSU versus the other great teams in the pantheon of college football. And I mean, these fools, whoever wrote that article, I can't remember, actually took time. They wasted breath. You only have a limited number of those people, and they wasted some of their breaths debating 1941 Army versus 2019 LSU. What? That was my reaction. So that's not really a debate. But this Georgia-Florida location deal, it's an actual debate. So I threw it up on Twitter the other day. I like to do polls. It's my unscientific field research that I use the Twitter account for. And so I get a pretty good sample size. I had a couple thousand votes on it. And I asked, do you think it should be in Jacksonville, or do you think it should be home and home? And it was like a 60-40 split. I mean, that's really cut down the middle relative to what the poll results normally are there. So this is interesting because it's doubly unique. Unique factor number one is the split. Normally, you don't put something out there in college football that's 60-40, but number two, never, doubly never, is there something this divided that I don't have a strong feel on. I have no feel on this whatsoever. I have been to this game many times in Jacksonville. I have been to many games in Athens. I've been to games in Gainesville. Like, I have witnessed major event type games in all these venues. I have nodded in agreement with every or versions of every argument that's been made in this deal. I love the game in Jacksonville. Love it. It is a very unique atmosphere. Irresponsibly didn't have the phone silent. It is a very, very unique atmosphere. But also, I mean, I would be very intrigued to see what it's like the first time Georgia goes into the swamp, at least in the last 20-some-odd years. Or let's say Florida goes between the hedges. Like, the whole generation has never seen that. It's only happened like once each time in the mid-'90s, I think it was, when they were renovating the stadium. Otherwise, I mean, they've been doing this game every year in Jacksonville since the 30s. So it seems to me that Georgia fans are more split on this than Florida fans. So I want to quickly prop this up for you because you can take a side. I mean, everyone watches this game. It's usually the biggest game that weekend in the SEC. But I just want to get some opinions on this. I'm interested in Florida. I'm interested in Georgia. I'm interested in any college football fan's opinion on this. Because there aren't many games like this. Like OU Texas is in Dallas. That's not going anywhere. But this is kind of the SEC's lasting version of that. I mean, Bama and Auburn don't play in Birmingham anymore, but you still have that Georgia-Florida game in Jacksonville. Here's the case for Jacksonville, the best I can tell, and you can add something in if I'm missing something. It's tradition, obviously. As I said, every year since 1933, aside from a couple of them in the 90s when they were renovating the Gator Bowl down there, it has been played in Jacksonville. And there are a lot of people who are just flat out agitated and tired of people trying to get their grubby little hands on everything in college football that is steeped in tradition and wanting to hit the change button or hit the reset button just for the sake of doing it. A lot of people are fed up with that. I understand that sentiment. I'm with you guys. Like 80% of the time, I'm with you guys on that. There's a uniqueness to it. Georgia plays several big games at home. Florida plays several big games at home. Why can't we just keep this one attraction? It's one time a year. If you don't like it, don't watch it. If you don't want to see it, don't buy a ticket. But give us this one game in Jacksonville. Jacksonville is a great host city, by the way. No one's ever complained about having to go to the city of Jacksonville. And like I said, even if none of these resonate with you, a lot of people make the case for Jacksonville by just saying, why don't you just keep your hands off the tradition of college football? You're trying to change everything else about this sport. Can we not keep these one or two layers here? Can we not have some semblance of carryover generation to generation? That's the case for Jacksonville. I think there are a lot of great points there. Then we look on the other side. Because mark my words, as passionate as the Keep It in Jacksonville crowd is, the home and home crowd, they're just as passionate. It seems like there's no one in the middle with me. There's no one indifferent. No one is straddling the seesaw. There are 500 folks over here, 500 folks over there, and there's me in the middle. Shruggy emoji. So the concept of making this thing a home and home is you get a major recruiting weekend. When Auburn plays at Alabama, it's a major recruiting weekend for the Tide. When the Iron Bowl is in Lee County, Alabama, it's like a really weird way to say Auburn. I'm from Columbus. I'm like bordering Lee County, so that's what we call it down there. When the Iron Bowl is at Auburn, it's a huge recruiting weekend for Auburn. They build towards this stuff for 2 years. I mean, that's the tent pole event. So you know, one of 2 years, guys, either when they're juniors or seniors, you're going to get them on campus and you're going to get to showcase a spectacle rivalry event. They don't get to do that at Georgia and Florida, at least with this game. They don't get to do that. The local economic impact cannot be undersold here. It would be a huge deal to have that economic windfall hit Gainesville once every 2 years or Athens once every 2 years. Also, the pure spectacle of having this as a home and home is something that almost sounds like promoting a pay-per-view in nature. When I'm talking about Florida and how bitter this rivalry is, and it is very authentically bitter, when you see Florida have to go into Athens, when you see Georgia have to go into Gainesville, the spectacle alone really kind of permeates and kind of tickles the minds of a lot of people. Like, they'd love to see that. But also, from the Georgia side, and this is where I think they're more divided than maybe the Florida side, there's a lot more support for Jacksonville on the Florida side because you can hop in a bus and be down there in an hour. Whereas Georgia's got to get on a plane. That's always been the old notion. How is it neutral when one team drives and the other team flies? I get that. So here's what we do. Like, I've got a little mind map for this segment right here. See, mind map. I get to the end of the mind map, and normally I have a resolution. There is no resolution. I have not landed any closer to really being on a side of this thing. It's one of those call me and wake me up if you ever change it type deals. But I am open to having my mind changed on this. So if someone has a very, very convincing argument one way or the other, I'd love to see it. But so far, boy, I've been inconsistent. I've been like the kid who has parents who are trying to pull them different directions. And I'm like, yeah, I like that. Yeah, I love that. That sounds great. That sounds wonderful. I can't land.